Hello and welcome to week 10 of the App Collective Mastermind. This week, Nick makes an MVP, I restore balance to my lead magnet, and we both discuss tipping, both in-app and in real life.
All things recording.
Working like a gherkin. I see bars and everything.
Working like a gherkin. So, location-based alarm. Had a very good week with that. I have basically, I've built the MVP. If I go over to if you go over to the Trello card, which you don't have to do right now, I added a couple of videos. But basically, what you can do right now is you can launch the app. You can add a location-based alarm. So you go to add an alarm, you pick a location, and you hit save. And all it'll do right now is if it sets a geofence of 1 kilometer, and if you go within the geofence while the app is running, it'll pop up a notification. Or if you're already within the geofence, it'll also pop up a notification, which is actually a separate bit of functionality that you have to add in. I spent a lot of time this morning kind of trying to massage it to be a little more elegant. Like I was trying to just code it first, and a lot of the stuff with the location manager code and stuff like that just can't be hurried. So I actually built a really nice like location monitor class that will track the regions and get the appropriate permissions if it needs it. Normally whenever I build an iOS app, I build meta permissions on top. So like, you know how like if someone says no to location and you really need location, you're kind of screwed, right? So I always try to build like a meta dialogue that's like, hey, I'm about to ask for your location. You definitely have to say yes here. If you don't say yes, nothing will work. And then, they hit yes. And then if they don't, you can obviously do other things in the interface, but you try to just head it off and be like, don't accidentally hit no here, please. It's really annoying. So I did a little bit of that, but not a ton of it. So yeah, like the app is it's low MVP, but it works. And I put in 2 videos into Trello, one of which shows the workflow if you're not yet in the geofence, and one if you already are. Do you think it would be worthwhile to share my screen and play them, or?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let me share my screen. Safari.
You're not going to do a live build and run and.
I totally could, but no, let's not do that.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you're basically guaranteeing that it won't work if you try and do that,
Exactly. Plus, it requires, even in the simulator, it requires a little bit of finagling. I saw something recently where you could add like a set of locations with a file and run it so that like you're kind of going on a track. But I just didn't bother with that. I was just literally like, I was using, you'll see in my example, I'm using the Eiffel Tower. So like you're either on Apple's campus or you're at the Eiffel Tower.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I shall play this first video. This one demonstrates the not in the geofence yet. So there's not much to the visuals yet. So you go, you add an alarm, you have the map so you can see you're already in California at Apple's campus. I am going to go ahead and do a search for the Eiffel Tower, and then I'm going to pick the Eiffel Tower as my location alarm. And then I'm going to go hit save. So there's nothing showing in the UI right now, but it is now checking and tracking. So I'm going to go up to the menu and change my location to the Eiffel Tower. And ta-da! You have entered the Eiffel Tower, basically.
Cool. So,
yeah.
So would you expect that to work if the app wasn't in the foreground?
Not at this exact second. So let me get to that second.
Okay.
But yes, that's what I was definitely going to discuss. And then I'll fire up the second example real quick, which shows what if you are already at the Eiffel Tower. So I've changed the location. You're at the Eiffel Tower right now. You'll see because in the map, you're in France. So I'll search for the Eiffel Tower again. I misspell it. And this time you can see like on the map, you're already at it. And since it's a small geofence, ta-da, you're at the Eiffel Tower. So that's like the 2 most immediate use cases. You're either outside the geofence and then you go in it, or you're already in it. Those are the only two, because I don't really care about exiting. This is just it's nice. This is like only an on entry alarm. So it's kind of simple. So obviously I'll have to go in, add more, actual UI bits and stuff like that. But that's the mechanics at work. So yeah, the next thing I have to do, and which I only started researching this morning, is exactly how the background execution works. Because with Location Manager, you start monitoring for a region, and a region has the lat lon and a radius. And so it's clear how that works and it monitors it, but it wasn't exactly clear. Like, so, I registered my app in Xcode for background execution based on location services. And so what I have to I was still reading Stack Overflow articles and stuff about whether when my app goes into the background, will it still be monitoring in the location manager, and then will my basically my notifications trigger so that I can do stuff, or do I have to now add an extra layer of functionality that when it goes into background execution, I have to set up things a different way, and I am not sure.
It should be that it just works that it just now works, and so that location, that delegate call to whatever the delegate call is for the zone stuff. We haven't done the zone stuff, but assuming it works the same way as the more frequent location tracking, that you have to enable the background stuff with a tick box in Xcode, and then that's it. It will then be running in the background, and it will you get the notification or the delegate call when something happens.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. Because what I did was,
oh god,
sorry. I was going to say, so I built a location monitor singleton class that kind of encapsulates all this, and it first gets initialized in my delegate. So it has nice long life on its variable, and it just fires off a delegate call very similar to what you just said, where when you enter or exit a region. And right now, I just I fire off a notification, and like a observer notification, not the kind in your phone, like the kind in code. And so right now my main view controller is listening for that notification, and that's what pops up the alert. But what I would optionally do then is also, what I would probably do is when my app go to background execution, I will then add another listener in the delegate. And when that occurs, I would actually fire off a local notification a la iPhone notification. And if you said it should just work, hopefully that's it.
That is it. I haven't done exactly that, but I've done a combination of those things, and I would expect that to work.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, nice.
Well, then that means that I think my next week is probably, I have kind of two things I want to do, and I'll ask you if you think I can do them all in 1 week. It is basically finish rounding out the UI. So when you add an alarm, you actually get some kind of a visual on the main screen, much how your world time has a little clock listing. You will have your alarm, and then obviously the ability to edit or delete that alarm, and then actually have the notification pop up on your iPhone when the app is in the background. So it's two things, kind of make sure it works in the background how it should, and the UI flourish. And so that's obviously what's next in terms of coding. What I wasn't sure about is that something I'll have done, in 2 days, and then I can start getting a couple beta testers from our Patreon backers? Or should I focus on just getting the app ready in the next week for Patreon backers to beta test next week?
I would do more before sending it out. So I think maybe you need to have a range, the kind of how near to the Eiffel Tower am I, and make that configurable before it goes out. I'm trying to think what else you would want.
Yeah, so you can, I was thinking not giving it free form, but just a range on the radius, maybe something like 100 meters, a kilometer, 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers.
Sure.
But
I think I
orders
would
of
do
magnitude.
That before you dispatch it out. And then it's probably just because I'm doing it a lot at the moment, but I've kind of gotten really into the idea of getting a lot of logging, and then having that, so if people get in touch with you, that you can see what's going on, because this location stuff can be very tricky to debug. and to see what's going on with it. So you may find that you don't need that, but that would be something to think about. Maybe is like, just having logging whenever those delegate calls are hit and stuff like that. And then if someone gets in touch, just zipping up those logs and sending them over to you.
Right. Like I could easily just create like a good old debug flag. And if I'm doing that, I just kind of log everything I'm doing, right? Like user set a location. Here's the location and the details they set. Alarm fired, alarm didn't fire, app went to the background, like kind of like a nice little track record of what the app's doing, right? So if they're like, hey, it didn't fire when I got close to the Eiffel Tower, what gives? And then, I can be like, hey, go in and hit export and I'll be able to see.
Yeah, exactly. Just, it's something to think about. So you definitely don't need that, but you might find that it's worth thinking about to do that. And what else? I don't think there's anything else that you would need to do before you can put it in front of people.
All right. Well, then how about this? Like I'll have 2 tasks. One is what we just described. Finish up the UI for this first build, double check the background execution works, and then add in some logging. And then a whole separate task would be rope in a couple of our Patreon backers to beta test, especially like Martina, whose idea this app was. And if like, let's say for example, if I'm done before we're talking next week, I will start that process.
Yeah, cool. And obviously hit me up as well for.
Yeah. No, I know. This is where you are basically king of the castle.
Okay. How do you mean?
I just mean because, almost all of the things you built rely a lot on location. Like World Time does location stuff. Right. You've done location stuff for Nomad Tracker. Like you have definitely touched more of the APIs and location codes and permissions than I definitely have in apps. So
yeah, cool. Well, yeah, I'm be looking forward to see it.
All right, I'm just typing up the things you just said into future to-dos, because sometimes I say I'm going to do them, but I actually find it's easier if like when we say it aloud, doing it right exact then.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, definitely.
Some Patreon backers to test it out. Cool. Yeah, and also I didn't want to, show you any source code or anything like that until I wasn't embarrassed by it. So, because you gotta bring the A game when you share the source code.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. But yeah, so I think that's pretty good. I don't think either of those 2 next steps are all that complicated. The hardest part was the thing I already did. And even that wasn't terribly hard. I kind of liked working with the location stuff. So far, it seems pretty straightforward. Like the magic is stuff you don't have to worry about. You're just like, hey, here's a location. Here's a distance. Tell me when I'm there. You don't have to do it. I love that part.
Yeah, that is cool. Those APIs are good.
Yeah, so need to do more stuff with that in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's hit your first one, which is a bajillion new mailing list subscribers roughly within progress.
Yeah, exactly. A bajillion was the exact number. A bajillion and 3 was exactly.
A bajillion and 3, yeah.
So my goals were, let's do some screen sharing, but I was to come up with variations of the sideways woman, as she's affectionately known. If I do desktop, and then if you remember vaguely what these look like, so basically it's changing the wording. So I've done different wording on here.
Gotcha.
And so it's pretty subtle, in fact, between those 2, and then the original one just doesn't have, just is less text.
Right.
And so they are done, and then I put them into the app, and they are shipped and out in the world.
Awesome.
I haven't looked at the results yet, so that is my task for next week, is to because I shifted last week or the week before to use Facebook Analytics, and I've not looked at that analytics yet at all. So it's to kind of go and figure out how to do this. It should be straightforward, but I haven't tools. So
Yeah. I haven't done much in terms of analyzing my data in Facebook Analytics other than tracking opens, installs, and in-app purchases, which are kind of the easiest three things they give you. So it'll be interesting do you have a custom event for this that you're tracking?
yeah, and so the maths is easy. So it's just like there's an event for when it shows it, and then an event for if you sign up, and then you just work out those as a percentage for each one.
Gotcha. So you can even say like, I know 1,000 people opened the app and only 500 were shown one ad and 50 were shown the second one. So you can even tell percentages like that.
Yeah, exactly. But all I'm
Cool.
really interested in is the percentage of people that see an image and then sign up.
Right.
And then
Cool.
from after that, I can see, I'd be quite interested on this one to see if it makes, my instinct is that these are all going to perform about the same. So it'll be interesting to see whether there's a clear winner in this scenario.
After you've analyzed the data from these, are you going to reduce it down to the winner and have that be the only one? Or do you think you're going to continue keeping a couple different versions out there?
That's a good question. If there's a clear winner, then I'll definitely go with the clear winner. If there isn't, if they're all like within a percentage of each other, or even if they're close, then I'll probably just leave all three, or maybe the two closest ones. But if one is even more than 1% difference, then I'll just switch it to that, I think. So I could keep doing more experiments, I guess. But I feel like the results are pretty good. Like I'm pretty happy. I'm not going to hit the 5,000, but I am getting I think this week in the last 7 days I've had like 140 subscribers. So
it's amazing.
I feel like that is like, and at the moment also I'm not actually doing anything with that mailing list. So I feel like I moved from the stage of I need to get people on this list I need to actually do something with these people. There's no point optimizing to getting 1,000 people a week if I'm not sending any emails. So the next area.
Yeah, and honestly, the other thing would be like the next mastermind phase of this would probably be keep those mailing list subscribers.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think keeping them, yeah, exactly, is only a problem when you start sending them messages. So,
fair.
Yeah, and so the other thing, you're right actually. So I've got this introductory thing, or there's like this drip where it sends out the document that they have signed up for, which is like a guide on how to take their measurements, and it sends like 4 emails over a number of days, kind of with like how to do length measurements, how to do weight, how to do body fat, how to do photos and stuff like that. And so, yeah, there is an element of optimizing that, but I'll need to reflect a bit. Really, I need to start monetizing it somehow. I think that's got to be the next big step, is like giving these people a way to give me money and giving them.
I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but our friend Beck is doing a new like funnel business to kind of teach people how to make rapid funnels. And this kind of sounds like that fits within that.
Well, I feel like this is the funnel. So the funnel is, so I need a product, right? So I either need a product or affiliate links. Like I did see Beck's thing, but I don't know. I feel like I'm quite far ahead of a lot of people.
No, I mean, you're right. Now that I say it out loud, like you're right. You have actually executed 95% of the funnel. The only thing left is what are you upselling, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that bit, needs both thinking about and then working on. But so all in all, we'll see what we get at the end of next week. But
but this is great though, because I think, like we said, the last time you were talking about the number of subscribers, it was around 20 a day as well, which means like regardless, you are going to get to that 5,000, which means like you will achieve your goal, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to get to the point when it gets to 2,000, I have to start giving MailChimp money, and so that's like only a few weeks away. So at that point, I really do need to start thinking about what am I getting from this? Because at that point, it's actually going to cost me money just to be gaining all these email addresses. So But there you go. I feel like there's a lot of potential with it for sure. So
Definitely.
yeah, it's exciting. And I've kind of been thinking about maybe I license some content from somebody or something like that. Like maybe there's some health and fitness blogs who would like to reach more people, and I can just pay them and take their content, or I don't know what. But
you could even think about doing IRL partnerships. Like, say you could tell like, oh, a lot of my signups are in New York or London or something like that. You could reach out to like a fitness studio in one of those areas and be like, hey, we're doing a workshop this Saturday, etc.
Yeah, I could, and I've thought about something like that. I think I want, basically what I want is for someone to do it for me, and for them to keep if it's to give them most of the money, and then it's like it basically is an affiliate thing. So someone else looks after it, and then I take like a cut of the money, and they take another, the rest.
Sure.
And it's kind of mutually beneficial.
Can't really argue with that. Also, because something like that would mean you could actually have an event calendar at some point where you have constant fitness related things going on, and you're just taking cuts from whoever from your community joins them.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing. So yeah,
nice.
So we'll see. Yeah, so that's
awesome.
That is that one. Let us talk about your next one, which is $10 a day in App Store profit.
Do it. All right. This is the one I did the least this past week. I spent much of my time on the alarm clock. But so I'll come out with the thing I failed at first. I didn't get to my screenshots yet. I already pivoted, but my main task for next week will hopefully just be screenshots and videos. Cause I just recorded videos for the location alarm clock. And it's not like they need to be that much more complicated for the App Store videos, like something of that level of complexity with a little bit of music tossed in. So I will do those damn things next week. What I did was I was looking at swapping out the free countries in Piper. And I thought a lot about what you said about breaking out the in-app purchases into individual countries. I don't think I want to do that at this point just because of the workload. That would mean creating literally 70 or 80 new in-app purchases. And honestly, it would take me dozens of hours just to simply test and get it all ready. Not that it wouldn't maybe eventually be worthwhile, but I'm not ready to do that at this point. So I think right now, the free countries in Piper are Canada, France, Italy, Mexico, the UK, and the States. And what I was originally thinking of, I was trying to look at the packages I had, and obviously France, Italy, Mexico can all split out. I have Central American one. I know Mexico is North America, but I can pivot Mexico down to its nearest package. Italy and France can go into the Western Europe package, etc. So I was originally thinking maybe I would keep the UK, the States, and Canada as free. Like the States for free makes sense because it's mostly for Americans. It doesn't really make sense to have that one be paid. The UK actually makes a ton of sense to be paid because most Americans, I think that the three highest destinations for Americans traveling abroad are like Italy, especially like Florence, Ireland, and the UK. The only problem is I felt a little icky. I can't toss the UK into the Western Europe package now. I would have to create like a new package that it would be part of, and then I would probably add in Scotland and Wales, and I don't even know what else.
So when you say you can't, you mean technically it's impossible, or it's a lot of work, or like what do you mean?
Which can't?
So you can't put the UK into Western Europe.
Oh no, I just meant me, icky wise, Brexit wise.
Oh, I see. No, it's still going to be in the continent of Europe. So
yes,
I think
it's true. You're right. So
as much as some people would want to, I don't think we're going to move our geographical location away from.
All right. Yeah, so that's fair. So technically, I can just lop off France, Italy, and the UK and just toss them in one of the European packages. No big deal. And I would probably create a North American package then and put Canada, and Mexico, and then add a few other, like I could maybe do a separate entry for Puerto Rico. I could do, I don't even know, like Newfoundland or something. Like I can flesh it out a little bit, but then leaving the states in. But yeah, I was really having a hard time trying to think of, because I've added a lot of countries. There's something like 80 countries in my app already. So yes, there are 122 new other countries that I have not added yet, but there's not comprehensive tipping information in the world available for all of them. So I was really trying to go through and pick, like, what are countries that have tipping data that I can use, but that aren't like, high tier, like you would say. And so far, two of the ones I came up with are Monaco and Sri Lanka. Two places that people go to, but would not necessarily be the first country you're going to buy Piper for.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think it makes sense actually to leave the US as a free one, because then people can, because assuming that most of your customers are American, then they can look at it and think, yeah, this is right. And then it gives them kind of, they're never going to buy that anyway because they don't need it, but they can look at it and trust that what they're seeing looks right.
So. Although you would be surprised the number of chat conversations I have had with people that are upset that I don't provide more comprehensive states-based tipping advice. They're like, but what about insert like the most idiosyncratic thing? Like, what about a masseuse that comes to my house in New York? Like, what do I tip them? I'm like, you are going way too far. And I'm like, this is travel tipping. Travel.
Yeah. And that's just the problem with tipping, full stop, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what do you tip a masseuse who comes to your house in New York?
Honestly, probably a lot, because I assume if a masseuse is coming to your house in New York, you're paying like well over $100 an hour for that massage. So you're probably going to tip like $20. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I actually had to caveat so many of the tips in the States for, this is how you should tip, except if you're like in New York, and then you should do something totally different.
Right. Oh gosh, it's too complicated for me. It's off-putting.
Yeah, it is off-putting. So not even over the next week, but this is more like a half-week task. Is basically got to 1, 2, 3, 4. So out of the 6, I need to find 3 more countries that I haven't already added, that I can add in with the free ones, and then like redistribute the others to the other country packages.
So why do you need to match them like for like? Can you not just have Monaco, Sri Lanka, and the US as the free ones?
Ah, I see your point. Kind of feel like I want 5.
Okay.
I don't know. Just for poops and giggles. I feel it like, like for the location alarm, when I monetize that, it will be like you can make 1. And then if you want to make more than 1, you have to pay, something like proof of concept. But I don't know. It feels, I don't know. I mean, I could do less. It just feels ick.
Yeah. You could do like Vatican City.
Actually a good one.
And then like Japan, basically no tipping in Japan for anything. That's got to be.
Yes, except people have paid for that.
Right.
Damn it, Lewis. China, same deal. Yeah, I know. Like, I'm like, what about the ones where it's no tipping? But yeah, no, I think honestly, I just need to come up with 2 more that are relatively obscure, but with enough data on them to have a consensus. Because I don't normally add a country if I can't get like 3 unique verifiable sources that all line up on the tipping. So yeah, like 2 more sources, and then redistribute the current set of free countries. Because I was looking through my data, and like, Western Europe is still my highest individual package, and adding the UK, Italy, and or France all to that package, which might overvalue it. I might have to split it up a little more. Should probably increase, hopefully, that number of downloads.
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds like it's moving forward well.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll focus on it more in the coming days. Although it's hard, like the location alarm is the shiniest object in the room right now. So I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. No, I know
You
that
know,
feeling.
like you do. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to the tip jar.
Yeah. All right. So my task for this week was to, I don't know where I've put it, was to, oh yeah, mock up. I put it in the wrong thing. So to mock up screens where this could be added to progress. So I will share the, I don't know how interesting it is to look at, but I will share my screen nonetheless. And so I kind of, my original, before I'd started doing it, my thought was that I would share, that I could kind of do clever and interesting ways and stuff. But the more I kind of think
Right.
about it, the more I think this is supposed to be a tip jar and not, especially while I'm not offering anything. And I kind
Right.
of feel like pestering people for a tip. I don't know. I don't know what you think, but I was kind of like, I'm not sure that I feel comfortable with that.
Mm.
Maybe that's, now I'm saying that out loud, I feel less sure about that. I don't know.
No, I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably mostly right. Like, I don't know. A tip jar should be there for those who want to support you. But since it's, like you said, a tip jar and not a feature request, like, it's not a CTA for an in-app purchase, it probably shouldn't be too much like, hey. Like, I know
Yeah,
Chrome extensions do that, but Chrome extensions also don't have any other ability to make money other than asking for tips. So they kind of,
yeah,
that kind of pushes their hand.
yeah, sure. So one thing was like this is style message that I've used a fair bit.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so just putting this in there, but I'm kind of thinking I
Right.
probably won't do that. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll think about that one. But in the short term,
Yeah.
I've just got this kind of settings screen, and I was just playing around with variations of putting it into this settings screen.
Yeah, I like that. So, like, you have a few different options where, like, in your settings screen, it can just be like one of the options can be like, hey, like this app, support me with a tip, or buy me a coffee, give me a tip. Like,
Exactly.
support the app development. And I do like doing a little bit of a CTA like you did, but like you said, you can keep that as like a A/B test. Like maybe don't show it to
Yeah.
everyone, or maybe like after someone has entered their measurements in for a week or something like that, maybe it shows up at the bottom, like not banging you over the head, but it's like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. So, and I think in here, in this, so this isn't
Hmm.
even the top of this screen, so you have to scroll down to get to here anyway. So
Right.
this is pretty buried, and so and then this one, I mean, it's interesting to think about what I want people to do the most in here as well. So, like, do I want a tip
Right.
more than I want people to leave a review, for example?
Right. Um, well, one thing I would do is I would, it's interesting. Like, typically, I would put help at the very bottom, and then, or I'm thinking like you right now, you have help section, you have your settings, then you have help, then you have social. I wonder if you
Yeah.
actually want to have a separate tip jar section under all of those that just says, tip jar,
Yeah.
or, help out or something like that. And then it just has the one menu item, like, leave me a tip, support the effort. So it can maybe even be a different color, like have, a slightly different call out or just a slightly different icon or something like that, so that, it catches the eye visually.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So make it a new section,
Hmm.
whack it in there, and then consider A/B tests.
Yeah, definitely consider A/B tests. And like you said, I think it should be the last thing probably, because you want people to focus on the settings first, and then you definitely want people to be able to find help if they need it. I guess, like, even though I think of help as like the last item, it's always the last thing in a menu bar, the last thing elsewhere. Social in these screens looks to be less helpful than the help would be, right? Because you probably want help backing up or leaving a review before you would share it on social media or something.
Yeah, but to put it in, I know what you're saying, but when you think about so like in a Mac app, your help
Yeah.
menu is always going to be visible,
Yeah, you're
whereas
right.
in this, so this is a table view, and I don't think you see the social without scrolling, whereas you do see the. This is just going to take forever to
Yeah.
load,
Give it
but
a second. But yeah, so you're right. Like if the whole point is you will see help above the fold, kind of, then that's a good
Yeah.
reason to leave it exactly where it is.
Yeah. So, oh, come on.
Is that your notch approved version?
Yeah, notch approved. So from here, so you, this
Hmm.
super tall screen, you can just see help there.
Now, that's only viable on this iPhone 10, though. What about
Yeah.
on, I mean, I'm sure the pluses show it as well, but what about an 8?
Let's assume I
Do you
have
already
it.
have it installed on the 8?
Let's find out.
Whoa.
Cool.
Since when do they fire up a second simulator?
Uh, this since the summer, since Xcode, whatever it is,
Huh.
9.5.
You know
Since
what?
iOS
I've gotten a little lazy, and since the iPhone 10 simulator's been available, I haven't been toggling. You know, I've been like launching and then I close the app and then I reopen the app.
Right.
Why
Okay. So
is Oh, I was going to say, is there a lot of space above? No, okay. Yeah, I couldn't tell if there was like dead space above your app, but it's just the bezel looks fucking big next to a 10. This is what's ruining
yeah,
you on the 10, isn't it?
it sure is. So yeah. So on it. So this is the 8. So this is the most common
Mhm.
size. And on there, help, you got to scroll down for help, and
Mhm.
then again for
Mhm.
social. And
You
so
know, I've done things in the past where I've tried to shrink the screen a little or change the options so that things like that are visible. You could always do something really silly like you see how you have a little bit of gray space above your profile photo. If it just
mm,
starts exactly there, yeah, something like that. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's fine. Like, I
I
don't
think
know.
it's probably
I
fine
maybe
as
think
well.
about it. I don't think, because I've got so much extra stuff, I'm not going to
Uh huh.
squeeze it just to get it in. I would have to really kill some of this stuff. And
No,
so,
I think you're right. But I think you're right. Now that I'm looking at it in the simulator, I think the way you got it laid out makes sense. And yeah, just add a new section to the very bottom.
yeah, yeah, that's cool. And then it will stand out more by virtue of being at the
Exactly.
bottom. So,
Exactly.
yeah. Cool. So that's so my plan
Nice.
for next week is basically is to build this. So I've obviously done the tip jar already. So I need to create the products in the App Store, like the in-app purchases, and I need
Right.
to just bring this code in and and see how it works and
Nice.
and get that done. So I realize what I haven't done actually on the tip jar itself is the iCloud sharing bit. Now I'm saying it out loud. I need to do that first. So the idea was that it should do that. The tip amount should sync to iCloud Drive,
Mm-hmm.
so that so it doesn't forget your tips.
Right.
Don't know. That's interesting because at the moment their data doesn't sync to iCloud Drive, so it's kind of
Right.
like your
Oh, shit.
tips syncs, but the data doesn't. So I don't know how I
Interesting
want to do
potential thought.
that.
I know you keep track of the tips so that if at any point in the future you kind of want to offer a boon or something like that to people, you can. Would there be a way to track tips across all of your apps so that, like, you know, if someone tipped you in any app, it was reflected across all of them?
That I think that would be possible. Um,
That'd be
I'd have
kind
to
of
think about
cool.
whether I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I want people to spend money in all my apps, and they're not going to
True.
care that they're related. Like, it would make more sense if it was like a suite of apps. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it would make sense. So if I had I can see where it
Yeah.
would make sense. So like, if there was a suite of apps, then it would make sense. But where they're just totally different, they look different, like they feel different, they're for a different audience. I think it makes
Right.
sense to do it.
That makes sense. True.
So yeah, I think it's a good idea, but not for the apps that I have at the moment.
Cool.
Um, yeah, yeah. So that's it. So I don't know. So should I do the iCloud syncing stuff? I probably
Mm.
should. Um,
Mm.
so
Do you want to
it's going to be a world
attempt
of
to do
fun.
both of those things in the next week then, or
I'm not sure.
just the section?
My understanding is that the iCloud tip jar should be very straightforward. or the iCloud syncing should be very straightforward. But
Mm-hmm.
nothing with iCloud has ever been simple in my experience thus far. So I'm going to aim for both, but if it's not plug and play, then
Right.
I will have to do something else. Then that will be
That's
the
cool.
task. And if it is plug and play, then I'll do the other stuff.
Nice.
And yeah, cool. That's the plan. And it's just
The iCloud syncing is kind of like it's like the stretch goal for this week.
Well, the other way around. So I'll do the iCloud syncing first, and then the stretch goal is actually to put it into the app.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, there we go.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's it. Yeah.
Very nice.
So that one is done. So we're on to your last task. Before we jump on, what happened with your App Annie analytics type tasks? Did they fall off was there
interesting.
tasks for those, or?
That's an excellent point. I don't remember. Now that you mention it out loud, I'm like, did I say I was going to do something with App Annie, or did I say I was just going to look at it? And now I can't remember. Basically, I've been briefly reviewing the daily emails it sends. They're kind of data heavy, so they're a bit, intense. What I was waiting for was a lot of my numbers were 0 because App Annie keeps a copy of all your data. And so like all the quote last week stuff was always 0 until it had caught up with a full week of data. So I was waiting until, because I had started using it before I had plugged in the Apple search ads. I started with the iTunes Connect. So I wanted to wait a full week for the search ad data to be in there so that when it compares this week to last week, there's actually data and it's not, plus 100% or minus 100%.
Yeah, sure.
And so that has really only come into effect in the last 2 days. So I'm going to give it more glances. I was honestly just taking a breather from the ad stuff because it's not my most favorite thing. And I do feel a little bit like I tilt at windmills when I try to fight it.
Yeah, sure. I think you've got to get this, get an understanding of this margin stuff. Like, I don't know.
I think you're right.
I feel like
you've
got to do that before the end of the thing, and there's not a lot of weeks left. Yeah.
All right, fine. I'm gonna put a thing in for margins right now. Just figure out App Annie margins.
Because it's pretty, and if you get stuck with it, then hit me up and we can call and go through it. Because it's, at least across all of your properties, it's pretty straightforward.
Cool.
So doing it app by app isn't straightforward, but doing it just for your whole account is easy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
because if it's something where it's like you can look at the margin and it's like, oh, you can really pump up your ad spending because you have a lot of margin, or hey, it's a little tight, maybe this isn't worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
All right. And then your next one is the Patreon, patrons on the Patreon.
Yes, the joys of social engineering. So 2 weeks ago, I reached out to a bunch of people in the 707 community who I've talked to about App Collective and building apps and things like that. And out of like the 9 people I wrote like really detailed posts to, 8 out of those 9 people, 4 backed. And then basically I didn't hear from 5. And so over this past week, I was going to follow up with all of them and, try to get more. So what happened was I followed up, I got 1 more, but then I also lost 1, like an older backer unrelated to all of this. So kind of had a net 0 gain for the past week, which is a little annoying. So my goal for this next week is to expand that scope. Cause we talked last week about how it really does seem to be like the at this moment, at this scale, the individual outreach is still very valuable. Like I have not yet completely tapped out my personal network. I will at some point, but right now I have not. So to get those remaining 2 or 3 backers, I think I'm just going to expand my scope outside the 7 and 7 community, and just kind of like, I made some targets for myself to like look at who I'm friends with on Facebook, look at who I'm friends with on Twitter, people I email with, like who would be likely to back at just like, $1 a month, something like, show us support, and use that to get me over the 20.
Cool. All right. So have you got a task? I'm just looking, another round of personal outreach. There we go.
Yep.
And it's all defined as well. Excellent. Good stuff.
Yep.
So how do you feel about that one this time? Do you feel more confident in that? Like, you were pretty successful with this last time, right?
Yeah, I do feel more confident about it. The hard part is of the people I reached out to 2 weeks ago who like basically like, wrote a lot of Facebook posts to people I know and I talk to, but then like, they don't respond. And it's hard because even though I tried to contextualize the message quite small, you still have to provide some info, right? Like you have like, I was trying to say like, look, doing a mastermind, trying to get to this many backers to support me on this thing. I would love your support. I'm not talking a ton of money here. Like, if you can afford $1 a month, like you would be doing me a real solid. And if people haven't replied, but I can tell they've read it. It's really hard to say like, oh, have you just not thought about it yet? Is it something you said you would do? Cause like, I really hate pestering people,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's basically impossible to know whether they have looked at it and don't want to, and they think no, but don't want to say no, or whether they've looked at it and then just been distracted or.
Exactly. So that's why my first goal this week will be, find fresh faces to just bypass the issue entirely. And at this time next week, if I'm not in as happy a place, because the whole point of reaching out to the 7 and 7 community was more likely to back, people who know me, know what I'm doing, possibly might even benefit from the app development we're doing. And that would be a more hopeful backer. So I will expand my scope, see how that goes. If that doesn't work out, I will double back, swallow my pride, channel Beck power, and re-ask those people for money.
Cool. Okay. And you've got 3 to get, right? So I'm just looking at it here. So.
Yeah. And if one of the ones that should be a yes just hasn't done it yet. So hopefully it's 2.
Yeah. Awesome.
So hopefully, like if the old metric held, I would only have to reach out to like 5 people to get to that. But I'll try to see if I can reach out to like 10 different people across a few different mediums to, cover my bets. And then if, I can just get 2 or 3 more and, that's pretty okay.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Awesome.
All
right. Let's move on to the last one. Nomad Tracker.
Yeah. Nomad Tracker. So this one has had the least of my attention this week. Like, it's come when other stuff has come up.
Right.
Yeah, Nomad Tracker has been what has suffered.
Poor Nomad Tracker.
Poor Nomad Tracker. But I've done the stuff with the extra testers. They are invited. I started work on building the algorithm. So we talked last week about the kind of phases or like the levels of kind of normalization of the data between like having it for just every point that's collected to where you were on a given day to what your trips are. And my plan was to build a system or the logic so that we could say, so that every day it would know where you were at the end of that day. And I started doing that, but it is not finished. And so kind of just need to keep going on it, really. It's kind of, it's mostly because I haven't spent very much time on it, but also I'm trying to do this stuff in Swift, and that's kind of, I'm finding that it adds a bit of focus as well. So, so that is, so I need to keep doing that this week. And then I've still got this unit test stuff. I'm totally convinced that the unit tests are worthwhile for this, especially at this stage. Because I mean, I'm not going to be able to test it. It's not going to be practical to test like it in any other way, even with the data that I've got. I would still have to go through the data and work out whether it's right or not and stuff like that. And so at that point,
Sure.
It's like it should be a unit test, I think. So
Well, also, what's great is like we had talked about before with unit tests with this, since it's literally physical locations and all the unit tests are going to be about changing those locations, it's actually pretty easy and kind of fun because you can be like, what's it like if I'm just sitting still in a city? What's it like if I'm doing a visa run? What's it like if I'm going from one country to another? You can just pull from your own experience and replicate.
exactly. So that's the plan. So that's the stuff to do for this week. I'm just looking at this target now. This is going to be the one that I'm not going to hit in terms of like in 2 weeks' time. It could. I could.
Hey,
I'll
you
have to think
could.
about it. Yeah, I could. We'll see. I don't want to rush it though. That's the other thing. Like I don't want it,
Totally.
or at least I don't want it to be not ready. So we'll see. If this week goes well, then maybe it will still be on.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Everything we do as developers is artificial timelines, right? Like we do our best guess. Our best guess is always horribly wrong. And then we backtrack and cut features and double the time. So we picked a 12-week mastermind. It didn't mean that like your the Nomad tracker was going to fit perfectly in that. We just hoped it would fit.
It didn't, but it was also to give focus towards that.
Exactly.
So so we'll see what happens.
Cool.
See what happens with that. But all in all, it's been good, and it's kind of like it's good doing the Swift stuff. Like that is interesting and useful. And
cool. Yeah. At some point, I'll have to pick your brain on it. Maybe look at some code because I will have to baby step my way into Swift. I just don't want to right now.
Yeah. Well, I do get that because I was working on it this morning and I was getting frustrated. It's kind of doubly frustrating when all the examples that you find are in Objective-C, and then when you do find an example, it's in Swift 2 instead of Swift 3 or something like that. And then the autocomplete doesn't seem to work as I expect either. So it's kind of there's kind of a layer of manual translation, which you realize how spoiled you are in an IDE normally.
Right.
So,
Well, also just the other thing with Swift is since it has the more natural language look to it than, C look, it's jarring to read because I just constantly feel like there's missing semicolons. Like back in university, there were so many programming languages I learned, like Squeak was one of them and a few others that are basically natural language written. It's not, function name, parenthesis, semicolon. It could be just like words. And I feel like this is half and half. And so like, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah. Well, I like it, but it's, those habits die hard. So just got to stick with it.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, like start with small, crappy examples.
Yeah. And I just thought of something that is not to do with the mastermind, but I should have talked about at the top of the show instead of at the end. So maybe I'll glue it at the beginning instead. But one thing that was interesting that happened this week that's unrelated to any of this was on one of the podcasts I listened to, they were talking about how they've all got their new iPhones and how they want their apps they want all of the apps to have like a really a proper dark mode now that you've got an OLED screen, and a lot of apps have a dark mode which is kind of grey, whereas on a screen that can go properly black, you can actually make sense to make a properly black background. And so for a while time, I kind of spent like a couple of hours making it so that the dark theme I had in there would have a black background, like a properly black background if you had an iPhone 10. And I sent it to the people who would do the podcast on Twitter, and two of them took the beta and have had a look at it. So it'll be kind of interested to see whether anything comes.
So you're basically saying, because like in Takora I have a dark mode, and I know for a fact I don't do true black. I do 333 for the background color to make it a little softer. And so what you're saying is when I update Takora for iPhone 10, I should make sure at least on the iPhone 10 it's pure like 000 black, because then on the OLED screen it'll look like beautiful.
Yeah, because then, yeah, if you can, I think it's like a nice to have kind of a thing, but it's
Okay.
not too difficult. And so, yeah, then basically you can't see where the screen ends. So it's quite like the Apple Watch. So like on the watch,
Right.
you can't see where there's what screen and what's the edge of the screen kind of thing. And so
Gotcha.
it's kind of weird because I don't actually know what it looks like. I haven't tried it on a real iPhone 10, but I've just made it black. And yeah, and I think it looks good, but it'll be interesting to see. So I can report
Yeah.
next week on whether they talk about it on their podcast or whether they write about it or anything.
Nice.
So
Way to go. That's
yeah,
awesome. Go.
yeah, I was
Good bit of initiative and marketing.
yeah. Hopefully,
Hmm.
well, yeah. I'm excited to see if anything comes of it. If they talk about it
Nice.
on their podcast, I will be super happy. So
Yeah.
even if it
Get the
doesn't lead to any,
downloads ready.
well, even if it doesn't lead to any uptick in sales, if they talk about it, it'll be a really nice thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, because yeah, if they talk about it, then you add it to like a little press or testimonial bit on the site for World Time.
exactly. And then they can, and it's then like, yeah, it gives they if they know who I am a little bit, then that's good as well, you know. So
Totally.
yeah, cool. All right. So
All right. Good week.
Sandwich Bombshell. We'll speak again next week.
All right. Sounds good. Now, this was week 10, so 2 weeks left.
2 weeks left.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, then please give us a like or a subscribe below and let us know what you think in the comments. And we'll see you next week.